Well, good morning, Tammy. Thanks for joining me today. How is life over in Boise, Idaho?
Oh, thanks so much for the invitation. It's great. Weather is great. We're getting close to the end of the school year, so can't complain.
And you have just one kiddo in school, right?
I do. Yeah. She's 8. Yeah, and she is the boss at our house.
That sounds about right in our house, too. Our 12-year-old runs the house.
Yeah.
Well, we're having you on here this morning to talk about U visas, but before we get started, I want to just be able to have you share a little bit of your story. Um, I won't. I won't share any of it because it's your story to tell, but I'm just so excited that you've been with us for a little over a year now, and just all of the knowledge and expertise that you brought to our clients and to our team has been amazing. So tell us how you got started in immigration law.
Yeah. So I got started at the University of Tulsa. That is my first introduction to immigration law. And I just kind of really loved it from the start. When I was going to school, I couldn't really find a niche or something that really brought me joy or felt like I had a good purpose for doing the law until I found immigration law. And so I was really excited that I found that. I graduated in 2011. I worked briefly for the University of Tulsa. I was um, chosen to be a fellow at the immigration legal clinic there. And then after that, I worked for Catholic Charities in Tulsa for nearly 12 years. So I have a lot of experience with immigration law. It's the only practice that I have chosen since graduating, and lucky enough to join Molina about a year ago, and have been, just plugging along ever since.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2010, just a year before you, and I remember the job market at that time was really tough because of the economy. So you were really fortunate, and definitely shows that you knew what you were doing to be able to get a job like that. What was it like working in nonprofit? What did you like about that?
Yeah. So, um, I think the main thing is I was able to help anybody, regardless of their ability to pay. There are some really extreme cases out there, and people wouldn't have representation without nonprofits. And so I think it's really important that we support our local nonprofits. They do a lot for our communities within immigration law, but in many other areas as well.
Yeah, so there's been an attack on nonprofits for immigration law under this current administration. Do you think that that is, well, I use the word attack, so that kind of shows my bias. Do you think that that is being done on purpose or what's happening?
Yeah, I think it's really scary for everybody. I think that there has been a concerted effort to limit people's ability to have competent legal representation just in several areas of their life, but immigration law specifically. And yeah, it's been really scary. I'm sure for the nonprofits, but also just the immigrant community at large as well.
Yeah. Yeah, nonprofits do amazing work for many people, and so do we. So I'm happy that you made the jump to over to private practice. What would you say the biggest challenge has been for you, or the biggest change that you've seen making that switch?
Um, so probably just in like my day to day, I have to be a little bit more intentional about how I'm spending my time. But other than that, I don't think that there's a huge difference. I mean, I'm still doing what I love to do. I'm still helping immigrants and helping people to find safety and security in their everyday life. And so in that regard, I don't think there's a big change.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people make a big deal about comparing nonprofit attorneys, or even like in the criminal defense world, like public defenders, comparing them to people who are actually paid privately. I know many highly qualified attorneys who work in nonprofits and at the public defender's office, and on both sides. So I don't think that comparison is fair. And obviously you are super knowledgeable and qualified in many ways, in different areas than I have been, because you've been able to focus on some specific case types. So we're going to talk about some of those case types today, specifically a U visa. So tell me, what is the U visa? Where did it come from? And who does it help?
Yeah, so U visas are specifically for people who have been victims of crimes. There is a whole list of types of crimes that qualify for the U visa. If you want specific information about that, we can give you more specifics. But in general, you have to show that you've been a victim of a crime, and that you've been helpful or cooperative in the investigation or the prosecution of that crime. The whole point behind the U visa was so that immigrants who were victims of crimes could feel safe in reporting those crimes, which not only gives them like personal safety, but helps the community in general feel safe, if they feel like the law enforcement is going to like protect them and not use their immigration status as a tool against them. And so the purpose of the U visa was basically to keep community immigrants, immigrant communities safe from crime. And yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome. So I started as a legal assistant in 2000, and I vaguely remember when U visa started coming about. I remember it took a long time, even for like forms to be like they had the regulations, and then they had to figure out like, how are we actually going to do this? So when did immigrants first start being able to apply for U visas?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think it was like in the mid 2000s. I like the first one that I remember being aware of was like 2008 or 2009 was my first awareness of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so at the time, there was plenty of these applications that could be approved, right? Now it's become a different story. So explain a little bit about the limitations, the numerical cap, and what that means for applicants now.
Yeah, so there has always been a numerical cap by law. USCIS can only grant 10,000 U visas every year. And I mean, that's kind of just like a drop in the bucket of people who are waiting for their U visas. And so, yeah, it can be a really a long time to wait to get your U visa. In recent years, USCIS has acknowledged that, having to wait 15 plus years is just too long and causes a hardship to families who are in that process. And so they came up with something called a bona fide determination process. And so now when somebody submits all of the required information and fills out the forms appropriately, as soon as immigration reviews those forms, they will grant the person this bona fide determination. So that's really helpful, because with that, the victim can have something called deferred action, which is protection from deportation, and also the ability to get a work permit. And so they can continue to renew those work permits while their U visa application is pending. So they have a little bit of safety and security in the meantime.
Right. So 10,000, I mean, that sounds like a big number, but if they're not able to approve all of the applications every year, I can only imagine like how many total victims there are. It makes me curious, like, why did they pick that number? And did they just assume that there were not very many victims? But I think that there's still a lot of people that don't seek it and don't call the police, do you think that there's still that fear, that concern that it could harm them in some way with immigration if they report a crime?
Yeah, I think probably now more than ever with just the changing political climate and how much this message has been um, given from our federal government that immigrants aren't welcome, that, yeah, I think there is definitely a hesitation to come forward. Um, I have sensed a lot more fear in just people that I've talked to about, like, well, what is the right thing to do? Should I report this? What are the consequences? Like, what's going to happen to me if I do report this? And so, yeah, I think that that's a valid concern. I think thankfully in Oregon, we haven't been seeing a lot of negative police interaction for people who come forward. And so that gives me hope that things are not changing in that regard for our immigrant community. And so, yeah, I think there's always a little bit more reassurance that can be done to help people know that they are safe to do this.
Yeah, I think there might also be sometimes I've talked with some clients who are concerned about harming their partner. Like, for example, in a domestic violence situation, their partner might also be undocumented. And so the fear of, well, if I report this, it will help me, but then my partner is probably going to be deported, which won't help me if my partner is financially supporting me. So how do you talk through with clients about, all of the different impacts that their decisions will make?
Yeah. Well, I mean, those are definitely valid concerns. And I think the best thing to do is to just be open and honest and share my experience as best as I can. Um, yeah, so as far as like their partner being deported, I don't know how deep we want to go into this. But I mean, in the past, I'd say there probably wouldn't be a chance of that happening. Nowadays, with USCIS having kind of this open door policy with ICE, I'm not sure if that is actually a concern that we need to have. But that's something that we would definitely talk with somebody and tell them from our perspective the risks involved.
Yeah. And sometimes it's out of their control as well. Sometimes people are in a domestic violence situation and they choose not to call law enforcement, but their neighbor does. And then once the police are involved, the state can file charges, even if the person doesn't want to file charges. Remember, we had a client once who was so afraid of filing charges, and her partner threatened both the life of her and her whole family if she continued with the charges. And so she actively chose to drop those charges. And as you explained, one of the requirements for the U visa is that you cooperate with law enforcement. And so she initially had gone with another attorney and requested to start the U visa process. And the I can't remember if it was at the DA or the police, they had said, well, she refused to press charges.
Yeah.
So we were able to help her write a declaration explaining what had happened, what the threats were, why she chose to drop those charges. And that decision was then reversed and we were able to get that moving. So there are, extenuating circumstances. There's exceptions, you could say, to those requirements. And hopefully because it's understood that these are very complicated situations. Domestic violence is not it's not, there's no easy answers to it, and it can be many years before people even end up separating ultimately. So have you seen any U visas where maybe the partners are still together? Have you seen anything like that?
Yeah, I have seen that. And that is not a deal breaker for immigration. The basic requirements are that you have been a victim of a crime, you have been helpful in the investigation or prosecution of that crime, and that you've suffered substantial hardship or extreme hardship as a result of the crime that was committed. And so, as long as those three requirements are met, it doesn't matter if the person is still with the abuser. Yeah, there's a myriad of different, situations that can occur just, from that incident. And yeah, we are not here to judge. We are just here to help you with that process, and support your story and explain it in the best way possible, to get a favorable outcome.
Right. Yeah. Um, what about length of time? Like, is it a requirement that this happened recently, like this happened yesterday and I have to like start today, or how far back can we go to get these moving?
Yeah, so there isn't a specific requirement, a time requirement. We have seen in practice that the more recent the reporting of the incident, sometimes the easier it is to get that certification signed. But as long as like the police department has record of the incident that happened, it can be several years, many years. I mean, I think I've done cases where the crime happened like 10 plus years ago, and we were still able to get that certification signed. So time is not necessarily a barrier, but we would recommend, coming to see us as soon as possible.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned the certification, the U visa certification. Can you explain what that means and why that's needed?
Yeah, so that is a required part of the U visa. The certification is a letter or a form signed by law enforcement, or the investigating agency of any kind. So that can be like the police department. It can be a judge in a criminal case or a restraining order case. It can be the district attorney's office in a criminal case. Anybody who was in charge of either the investigation or the prosecution of the crime. And it's basically immigration's way of saying that some other party has affirmed that the victim was helpful or cooperative in the case.
Yeah, so you mentioned restraining order. Let's talk about that a little bit, because that I think is one of the biggest things that I always, when I was talking about U visas before, or hearing questions from people, that the main question is like, do I have to file a police report? My answer used to be always yes, it requires a police report. And now we found maybe it does not. So talk to me about some of the developments we've been able to do with restraining orders.
Yeah, so we have had a few cases recently where there have not been police reports filed, but the victim took steps to apply for a restraining order because they felt in fear of their safety. And throughout that process, in order to get a restraining order, the victim has to go and basically give their testimony to a judge, and explain the reasons why they're fearful for their safety, which will, in most occasions, include all of the past incidences of abuse. And so, in that context, the victim giving their testimony and the judge hearing their testimony, that is an investigative procedure. So the judge is investigating whether or not domestic violence has occurred and whether the victim is eligible for a restraining order based on that domestic violence. And so, in a few cases, we've been able to get those certifications signed by the judges, even when there was no police report filed. And so, yeah, that's been really exciting to see.
Yeah, I've been really, really happy with the results from that. We're in Lane County in Oregon. We haven't had the opportunity to try this in other counties yet, but we're looking forward to doing that now that we've seen that it is possible. What about any instances where like charges were, so the police report was made, charges were filed, but then, for whatever reason, the case was dismissed or the district attorney decided not to continue the case. What happens in those situations?
Yeah, so I think the victim still has some options. So even if the district attorney decided not to move forward, that doesn't negate the fact that there was an investigation. And so you can still go to the police to see if they will sign that certification because there was an investigation. And so that's always a possibility. And again, even if criminal charges were not brought or dismissed, yeah, if there was an investigation of any kind, there's still options. We can still ask those investigative agencies to sign that certification, and there's still a possibility to get it signed.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really great point. Do you have to be married to your partner to qualify for a U visa through domestic violence?
No, there's no marital requirement.
Yeah, and what about men? Like, do they qualify too?
Yes, of course. Yes, men can also be victims of domestic violence. Um, yeah, there just has to be, like I said, an investigation of some kind um, into the abusive incident.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely still a lot of stigma around men reporting because it's usually the other way around.
Yeah.
But I think we're starting to see a turn in that, especially as as immigrants are looking for options for safety and security here in the U.S.
Mhm.
Sometimes the things that have caused us the most shame or embarrassment, we're hesitant to bring those up even to an attorney because we still feel very strong feelings about those events. But I think as more information is getting out, that this could actually be something that's helpful to you to help you gain a work permit and eventually a permanent residency here in the U.S. That the stigma is slowly going down on that. What would you say to, let's just speak to the men for a little bit. What would you say to a man who has gone through an experience and doesn't want to talk about it? Why should they call an immigration attorney like us and talk with us about it?
Yeah. First of all, we would never judge you for a situation that you've been in. We're always happy to talk with anybody about any situation that they might feel like they need a little bit of guidance in. And so, yeah, I think it's important to know that domestic violence can happen to anybody. Regardless of your sex or gender, and yeah, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Um, we would hope that we can listen to you with just an open heart and um, guide you through that process.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. I think that um, there are some times where we're not able to help, right? I've talked with some clients who have been assaulted, for example, and assault is one of the listed crimes, but it requires a higher level than most assaults are charged at like a basic level. So, what other things have you seen where someone was a victim of a crime, but unfortunately we just weren't able to help them?
Yeah. Yeah. So for assault specifically, it generally has to involve some kind of a weapon in order for it to arise to something called felonious assault, which is just like you mentioned before, that higher degree of assault. And so if you have been a victim of any crime, I still think it's worth reaching out to us to just kind of dive a little bit deeper into that to see if there is a qualifying U visa there. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, not all crimes are going to make somebody eligible for the U visa.
Yeah, but I've been surprised some crimes that have qualified that are maybe, I guess I always like kind of compare, like it wasn't as bad as the attempted murder. Like, well, yeah, that was really bad, but that
Mhm.
doesn't make any other crimes, less harmful.
Yeah.
But for example, some things like stalking, where nothing, usually with stalking, nothing has actually happened, but it's that fear that you have that someone is, following you, someone is trying to harm you, or even attempts at those crimes. Like, it doesn't have to be murder. It could be, obviously, you're probably not going to be applying for U visa if you've been murdered, but attempted murder or attempted rape or any of those things. So have you used those? Maybe it takes sometimes a creative argument, right? Have you had to ever do anything to help someone qualify?
So probably the most creative or helpful would be if the police maybe haven't been taking the victim seriously, and the way that the police reported the crime, or recorded, I should say, the crime, doesn't amount to a U visa, but the actions taken during the incident are clearly qualifying. And so there have been times where we have requested a meeting with the investigative police officer to kind of clarify what happened, and provide or supplement more information, and then get the police report changed, so that it more clearly shows that this person was actually a victim of a crime.
Yeah, good point. Speaking of this administration, do you think that there's going to be changes to the U visa process? Is it safe to keep applying for these applications, or what could you predict might happen?
Yeah. So the changes that we have heard of, these are rumors. I don't know that anything has necessarily changed yet. But in the past, if you have been a victim of a crime and you are in removal proceedings, this could be a way for you to get your removal proceedings dismissed or admin closed while you're waiting for your U visa. We have heard that moving forward, because U visas do take such a long time, that ICE in general is not terminating removal proceedings as frequently as they had been in the past, and so that could be something that we would need just to give different advice on. Um, yeah, I don't know. This politically, like, this is just such a weird time, and um, I try not to think about worst case scenario, but I think, um, you know, yeah, there's talk of getting rid of the U visa, but I think that would take congressional action. The president himself can't just do that, and so I don't see that happening because he is only going to be our president for the next 4 years, and I think I've never seen congressional action happen faster than that. So I don't think that that's necessarily something we need to be concerned about.
Yeah. So again, this one is, if they wanted to end this program, it'd have to go through Congress, which takes a very long time. It's not something that he could sign an executive order today and it would be gone tomorrow. So I had a thought. Oh, the policy around denied applications is something I wanted to talk about today. So the new policy is, and this happened under the first administration too, that any denied applications will be issued a notice to appear, which means they'll be sent to an immigration judge for possible deportation. What would you recommend to people regarding these U visas, given that new policy?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, number one recommendation is talk with an immigration attorney, who has experience doing these types of cases, and has just a proven track record of being successful in these cases, because you want somebody with knowledge and understanding representing you in this. Given that a denied application could have very serious consequences. I actually have an example of that from the first Trump administration. when I was working in Oklahoma. I represented two family members who were victims of domestic violence. And they hired an attorney who was not well versed in immigration law. He filed their U visa applications without the certifications, and they were both denied within like 3 months of immigration receiving those applications because he didn't submit all of the required documents. And so these family members who had really strong U visa cases were all of a sudden given notices to appear. They had never been in removal proceedings before. And they all of a sudden had this brand new stress to think about and to navigate. They both had very small children at home, and it was just, a really what should have been an easy, straightforward process turned into just a mountain of anxiety and stress for them. And so, I would recommend talking with an immigration attorney who is well versed, who has a lot of experience with this, because the last thing anybody wants is for somebody to end up in removal proceedings unnecessarily.
Well said. Yes. I'm going to try something here. Oh, that looks better. Let's do the second half of the interview like this. Our faces are bigger. Okay. What about people who have been deported previously? Is that something that's going to keep them from getting a U visa approved?
Yeah, so it will not affect your ability to apply for the U visa. One of the really great things about the U visa is that you have an opportunity to ask for forgiveness for all of your past immigration violations. And so it's called a waiver. So through this waiver process, you can include, anything and everything that might otherwise prevent you from getting a visa. So past deportations, if you have falsely claimed to be a US citizen before, if you used fake documents to enter the country, there's, just a ton of things that might make it hard for somebody to get their visa. But with the U visa, all of those issues are forgiven. And it's basically like you're given a clean slate then moving forward.
What are some things what would be some examples of things that could not be waived?
So, the only thing that cannot be waived is if the victim has participated in genocide during Nazi Germany regime. So that is the only thing that is an absolute bar that would prevent somebody from getting the U visa. Everything else is discretionary, meaning that, if you have a laundry list of issues that make you inadmissible, it could make it harder or a little bit more difficult to get your U visa. But that just means that we have to work even harder to show what a good person you are, and the things, how you have changed and how you are making better decisions in your life. And so it's not impossible if you have, negative criminal history, or nothing is impossible with the U visa.
Yeah, so probably not too many Nazi genocide participants. I don't think I've met a client yet.
Right.
Never say never, I guess. But what other family members could benefit from an applicant applying for U visa?
Yeah. So generally, if you are married, and it's a different kind of crime, like your spouse is not the abuser, you could include your spouse in the application. You can also include your children who are unmarried and under the age of 21. You can include them in your application. If you are a child yourself, if you are under the age of 21 when you apply, then you can also include your parents in the application and your siblings who are unmarried and under the age of 18.
Great summary. Thank you for sharing that. I've also had one, maybe two applications where the victim of the crime was a US citizen child.
Mhm.
Um, and we were able to show how the parent was, the one that was actually doing the reporting. Have you seen any like that? Had any success with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, exactly like you said. In some cases, the victim is the child. The victim is young and unable to call the police themselves or to do the necessary reporting um, and be helpful. And so in those cases, the parents can step into the place of the child victim. So the parents would apply as the victim themselves, as long as there is clear documentation that the parent is the one facilitating the cooperation. Then yes, the parent can qualify as well.
Yeah. Is there an age that you've seen where it cuts off? Like, I guess it would depend on the agency. We have seen that like older 16, 17, 18, especially where the parent wasn't involved very much, they've said no, the parent wasn't needed at that time. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, there isn't a specific cutoff, like in the rules or regulations, there isn't a specific age. But yes, we have seen that the older the child gets, um, the less likely the law enforcement agency is willing to sign that certification that we need, if the child themselves didn't facilitate the report. I will go back though a little bit and say, I mean, in those situations, most of the time, even if the victim is 16 or 17, um, they're still probably going to tell a parent or a teacher first. Their first instinct isn't going to be, oh, I need to call the police. And so I think there can still be an opportunity for us to advocate for the parents, to be considered the victim themselves in that case.
Yeah. Great point. Let's talk about spouses. Um, so let's say I'm a victim of a crime from 2000, 25 years ago, because you can go back that far, like we were talking about earlier. You can go back further than that as long as you can get the law enforcement to sign the certification. In 2000, I was not married, but I'm married now.
Mhm.
Can my spouse still qualify through me?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, if you are married at the time that you file your U visa, up until the time that immigration makes a decision on the U visa. So, even if you filed the U visa, and because these applications are taking many, many years, um, you could get married, married to somebody during that time. And so it's not too late. If the application is still pending with immigration, you can still submit an application for your now spouse.
Great point. So there might be some people watching this who have a U visa filed and they have a new spouse maybe, and that spouse might be able to benefit. So
For sure.
um, give us a call and we'll check it out for you. Let's talk about filing multiple applications. So some people ask, well, if we file the U visa, could I still file something else in the future? Maybe like my US citizen child will be 21 in a couple of years, or maybe they were, if it's like domestic violence and they were also married and their spouse was a permanent resident or US citizen, maybe they might also want to file for VAWA. What would be the benefit to filing multiple applications like that?
Yeah. So you can file multiple applications. Um, I think so. Each of those types of applications is going to grant something different, and so yes, I think that you should definitely talk with an attorney so we can explore, what those benefits are. Um, but I would say specifically for people who might be eligible for both VAWA and the U visa. Um, sometimes you have issues that make it impossible for you to apply for your green card at the same time that you're applying for VAWA. But in the U visa context, those issues can all be forgiven. They will not prevent you from getting the U visa. So in some situations, having both of those applications is actually really helpful, because you might be able to get like a work permit sooner through the VAWA process, but then still be on your path towards your green card through the U visa process. And there is no rule saying that you can only have one type of application. You can file as many applications as you are eligible for. And so, talk with us, talk with an immigration attorney to figure out which applications you are eligible for, so that you can start getting those immigrant benefits.
Yeah. We had a client recently who was approved for a U visa and had a US citizen child that just had recently turned 21. She chose to file her green card through the child instead of waiting. It's 3 years that you have to wait to get your green card through U visa. What would be the benefit, or what kinds of questions would you talk through with a potential client to help make that decision, which one they should do?
Yeah, so that is a possibility that is only available for people who live in the Ninth Circuit. So Oregon is in the Ninth Circuit. And in that context, an immigration attorney would have to evaluate kind of all of your issues that you had to ask for forgiveness for. So when you apply for the U visa and you're listing this list of things that you need to ask for forgiveness for, there's certain things that would prevent you from applying for your green card through a family member instead of applying for your green card through the U visa. And so again, it would take an in-depth consultation with an experienced immigration attorney to figure that out. But in this case, it was possible. She did not have a lot of things that needed to be asked forgiveness for. And so she was eligible to take advantage of the fact that her son turned 21, and she was able to apply for her green card faster than having to wait for the U visa.
Yeah, that's a really great point that you made, that only in the Ninth Circuit, which is just some specific states here on the West Coast, which kind of takes us back to knowing what the immigration laws are and how different they are. Even though it's federal, they can be different depending on the state that you live in. So let's say you heard my cousin was able to do this and I'm going to do the same thing, even though I don't live in the same state. And an attorney says, yes, let's do that, because they don't have the experience or the knowledge. Or even worse, usually what happens is a notario, someone who is not an attorney at all, that has some immigration experience, sees this happen in one state and thinks that it can be done in all states.
Right.
So just a really good word of warning to be very careful, because it does depend on where you live and your specific situation. I don't know how many times I've heard, well, my cousin's nephew's aunt is able to dog was able to do it. Why can't you do it for me? And the answer always is, it depends on your circumstances. And I don't know that dog's case, but in your case, you can't do it.
For sure. Exactly. Yes. And to add to that, with the new automatic notice to appear policy from USCIS, it makes the consequences of applying for something when you're not eligible for it even more significant. And so it's really important that you talk with an immigration attorney who is experienced and knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, these are complicated things.
Yeah.
What would I do if I filed with a notary, or filed maybe with an attorney that I'm wondering if maybe I made the wrong decision? How would I know what was filed? Like, my attorney didn't give me a copy of what was filed. I don't know what was put in the applications. How would I get that copy?
Yeah, so the best way to get that is through a Freedom of Information Act request, or a FOIA. And you can submit those requests to immigration directly. That's something that we can also help you with. It's a relatively straightforward process, but that's really the best way to know what has been filed already.
Yeah. But even if I don't, read or write English, why would it be important for me to have a copy of my application?
Um, yeah, well, you want to know what immigration knows or thinks about you. You also want to know, um, make sure that you have answered the questions correctly and that you are not putting yourself in danger of a denied application, which could ultimately mean being placed in removal proceedings.
Yeah. Or something being approved, and then later on down the road, when you apply for a green card or citizenship, then it comes out.
For sure. Yeah.
A
Also a
lot
great
harder
point.
to, what's that?
I said that's also a great point. We've seen our fair share of those recently as well.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. If your ultimate goal is citizenship, yeah. Unfortunately, we've seen some mistakes that were made at the green card process that now makes it impossible for somebody to easily get their citizenship. So for sure, I think it's always a good idea to have a copy of your records.
Hmm. Yeah. Let's talk more about kids. We talked about spouses. What about, many clients are forced to leave their kids behind in their home countries, and they're staying with maybe grandparents or other family members. Are clients able to bring their kids through the U visa process?
Yeah, so you can add children no matter their location, as long as they are under 21 and unmarried. You can add them to the U visa application. Um, it might be a while if they're outside of the country. It might be several years before they're able to lawfully use that U visa to enter the United States. But eventually, if you stick with it, they will be granted the U visa, and then they can also um, enter lawfully.
What if they turn 21 while I'm waiting for the approval?
Yeah, so that doesn't matter within the U visa context. Their age is basically frozen at the time that the application was filed. So even if you file the application 2 days before your child turns 21, as long as immigration receives that application before the child turns 21, they're included. Their age is frozen. They can still be included and get that U visa.
That's amazing. I love that. What about traveling outside the US while the U visa is approved or after the U visa is approved?
So I don't recommend it. It gets kind of complicated. There are, that goes back to that waiver that we talked about, where you are listing all of the past immigration violations that you have. If you, depending on your situation, if you decided to leave the country after your U visa was granted, you would be triggering a new issue that would have to ask forgiveness for. And so it gets complicated. So first of all, you're only allowed to be outside of the country for no longer than 90 days, so no more than 90 days. If you are outside of the country for longer than 90 days, it interrupts your continuous presence, which makes it harder to get your green card. Um, but then you also have to think about, are you able to get a new waiver in that 90 days so that you can come back lawfully? And in most cases, the answer is no. And so it really complicates the matter, and prolongs your chances at getting the green card. So I would recommend not traveling. Um, that's just my recommendation. Once you're a permanent resident, you can travel freely. You can come and go as many times as you want. But if you can hold on and wait until you're a permanent resident, that would be best.
I think that is something that our clients struggle with the most is that desire the need in many cases to go home to see maybe a family member is on a deathbed or has already passed, and not being able to leave and go attend to those things. I can't imagine being in that situation.
Yeah.
And it's a significant sacrifice that our clients make in order to continue on the process that they've applied for, because many types of applications, if you leave, you're going to have to start all over, or you're throwing away what you've already done. So it's
Yeah.
very, very hard for many clients.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Yeah. Well, as you can see, everyone, Tammy knows what she's talking about with U visas. I would love for you to talk with her directly to see if you might be eligible for a U visa, or one of your loved ones or family or friends. So we encourage you to call us. How much do our consultations cost, Tammy?
Our paid consultations are $300, and that gives you an hour to an hour and a half of time with an attorney to talk through all of these really in-depth issues.
Yes. And if you have a more straightforward case that we can review outside of that 1 hour consultation, then we're generally able to do that, give that information to you for free. So definitely give us a call and we will check out your information. If that in-depth is required, then we'll schedule that for you. Tammy, thank you so much for giving this information today. And more than anything, thank you for your service to immigrants. As you know, we believe that immigrants make America great. And so immigration attorneys are helping to make America great as well. And I appreciate you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I look forward to meeting everyone.
Thanks, Tammy.
Okay.